What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another Week 2 preview and prediction. It's another top 25 matchup, ACC versus SEC in the Duke's Mayo kickoff from Charlotte, North Carolina, and this one has the makings to be a thriller. The Tennessee Volunteers are going to be going up against the NC State Wolfpack. Nico Iamaleava versus Grayson McCall. You have Dave Doran going up against Josh Heupel. And this should just be an absolutely fantastic football game. I'll tell you everything you need to know about the Vols and Wolfpack here in just a minute. But before we dive into that, you guys know I have to thank you for all the love and support you've continued to show me and you've continued to show my YouTube channel as we get deeper and deeper into the college football season. And hey, if you guys are as big of college football nerds as I am, which of course you are, you're watching this video, obviously it means you are, you have to hit the subscribe button and you have to ring the bell so you know everything I upload here on the channel and you don't miss a thing that I have to say for this college football season. But hey, if you guys want to help support me in literally any other way and you want to help do more to help support the YouTube channel, well, I just want to thank you for taking time out of your day and watching this video because that seriously does help support me in many more ways than you guys can even imagine. But you can also like, you can comment, you can share, and anything else I have or haven't said to support me on YouTube. But if you want to support me elsewhere and you want to maybe listen to me call a couple of games, I cover local high school games as well as games for my campus for pretty much any sport that you can think of that my college offers. If you want to learn about my journey as an aspiring sports media professional, and again, a lot of the other field work I do on and off campus, please go give me a follow on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, at TailgateNate29, capital T, capital N, and the number 29. I would really appreciate it if you gave me a follow over there. I'm posting about literally everything that I do here, so please go give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it and help support me in any way you can. But now let's dive on in to this prediction video. Number 14 versus number 24. How do we do predictions around here? Well, we'll take a look at some keys to the game when both teams have the football. So what does that mean? Well, we will first take a look at keys to the game when the Tennessee offense is on the field. So we'll look at the Vols offense versus the Wolfpack defense, and then we'll flip it. We'll look at the Wolfpack offense versus the Volunteer defense, give you some final thoughts, and give you my final prediction for what I think is going to happen in this game. Cool? Cool. Let's dive on into this one between the Volunteers and the Wolfpack. It should be a really, really fun one from Charlotte, and let's dive on into things when Tennessee has the football. What do you want me to say about this offense that was bad that past week against Chattanooga? Okay, sure. Yeah, they allowed 2 sacks, and, well, okay, maybe the offensive front could have been a little bit better in pass protection. Yeah, absolutely. And you would love to clean up that turnover, as I do believe, it was a backup quarterback that came in. Gaston ended up throwing a pick. Whatever, right? This Tennessee offense was absolutely spectacular against Chattanooga this past week. 69 points, 700 yards, balanced attack both on the ground, through the air. They were great on third down. They averaged 8 yards per play. But the offense is going to face a much, much, much bigger test than that Chattanooga defense when it goes up against this NC State Wolfpack defense that, albeit, did not play as well as I think a lot of people surrounding this program and in the college football world expected the Wolfpack to play last week. They allowed 241 yards through the air and 120 yards on the ground. They allowed 6.1 yards per play to a team in the Western Carolina Catamounts that has routinely been beaten and battered and bulldozed by FBS teams in the previous years. And there were times throughout this game as a 32.5-point favorite where North Carolina State found themselves behind the 8 ball. They found themselves down and they had to make a little bit of a comeback effort to be able to win that game. Now, we'll give credit where credit is due because NC State offensively, which we'll talk about later, was really able to put together quite a nice show. But we're talking about the defense right now, right? I mean, just go ahead and when you take a look at a couple of these things, 16 first downs for Western Carolina, 5 for 13 on third down. They allowed 6 yards per pass. They allowed 6.3 yards per rush, which is not good at all. I know only 120 yards on the ground, but Western Carolina only ran the ball 19 times. And this is the Tennessee offense that, guys, again, has a very, very balanced attack. This is the Wolfpack defense that we all know can play better, and it has to play better here. Nico Iamaleava was as good as advertised, 22 of 28, 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. he was just absolutely sensational. He was really, really good. Dylan Sampson had 3 rushing touchdowns. Deontay Thornton and Brew McCoy, Chris Brazel, even Dylan Sampson receiving had some really, really good games. Now, Squirrel White was not a big impact on this offense, only 2 catches for 22 yards. You know he's going to get his touches in a game like this where his production is going to ramp up. This is a Wolfpack defense that, look, you take a look at that second bullet point, and I've kind of touched on it already. It needs to show a lot of improvement. Both things are true, right? This is going to be a much bigger test for this Tennessee offense, right? For as many weapons as it has, this is just going to be a little bit of a different animal when you have to go up and play the NC State Wolfpack. Because look, no matter what those stats say from last week, the defense was able to get Western Carolina off the field more often than not, and they also did pretty solidly on third down. They were able to force some pressure. They did, or they were able to collect a couple sacks there from this past week. Guys like Aiden White and DK Kaufman and Jalen Parker all played really, really well for this defense. You even look at a guy on the defensive front like Davin Van. I mean, all those guys still played well individually for this team. But it's a defense that has to, stay off the field. You need to keep this Tennessee offense off the field for as much as possible. Do what you did in the Western Carolina game. You have to control the clock, and you may even need to force a couple of turnovers here as well, because again, this is the Tennessee offense that is really explosive, is really dynamic. They showed how lethal they can be last week, and I know that's against an FCS team. Okay, big deal. Putting up 718 yards and 69 points is hard on an FBS team. It's hard on an FCS team. It's hard to do even against a Division 2 or 3 school because, again, just the level of physicality that is needed for that, right? Tennessee is a team that has a very good offense, a ton of weapons, and the NC State Wolfpack better come to play. They have the pieces to do it, and if you want my personal opinion, getting into the prediction a little bit here, I do think the NC State defense is going to be a lot better than what it showed us last week. But will it be enough against this Tennessee offense? That's something you're going to have to find out my thoughts on a little bit later, because now we have to talk about when Nico Iamaleava is on the sideline, when Grayson McCall and this NC State Wolfpack are on the field, because it too, while it didn't put up the numbers that Tennessee put up last week, was still a very, very good offense. They held the ball for 35 minutes. They averaged 7.2 yards per play, 522 yards. We'll get you some offensive stats. Grayson McCall in his Wolfpack debut, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8 yards per pass, 1 pick. Yeah, the pick you definitely want cleaned up there. Jordan Waters, the Duke transfer, was spectacular at running back. 6.2 yards per carry, 20 carries, 124 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. Kevin Concepcion, probably the best wide receiver that is on this team. 121 yards on 9 catches and 3 touchdowns for him. I mean, you have that trifecta right there of McCall, Waters, and Concepcion. This is a McCall-led offense that is still really, really good. But it probably is going to have to go stride for stride, given the way the defense played last week with this Tennessee offense. And you saw how explosive the Tennessee offense was that past week. And look, this is an NC State offense that did not have much trouble with the cat-and-out defense at all. It was the NC State defense that had some trouble slowing down the cat-and-out offensive side. But this NC State offense, no problems at all. Grayson McCall looked great. Jordan Waters looked great. Concepcion looked great. Yes, they allowed a sack, but the offensive line looked good. Over 300 yards passing, over 200 yards rushing. Really good third down percentage. Again, they controlled the clock and everything that you wanted to see. But the battle in the trenches could really set the tone here in this game. Jordan Waters and this NC State offensive front are going to have to be as good as they were last week. Now look, this Tennessee defensive front, right? Let's take a look at it. 74 rush yards allowed this past week. They only forced 1 sack. Probably could have forced a little bit more in that past game. But overall, this is the Tennessee defense that only allowed 227 yards, only allowed 3.8 yards per play, and looked really, really good. It did lose some key pieces in the portal, most notably in Tyler Barron. But it's a defense that still looked pretty darn good. And while I pull up stats for that, give me 1 second. I mean, just this is a Tennessee offense that, sure, is going to steal the headlines and looked a lot more, or I shouldn't say a lot more, but just looked very, very impressive. This is a Tennessee defense too, man, that, look, it can create pressure. it's still got a lot of good defensive players there. It can create pressure, it can force turnovers, it can knock the football away. NC State has got to be smart offensively, but the battle in the trenches, I think, is going to be the big thing. If Grayson McCall gets hit, and this is going to be a Tennessee defensive front that's going to be able to get pressure and slow down this run game and make Grayson McCall win the game, I mean, sure, maybe that bodes well for NC State because, hey, this is the Tennessee secondary that still has a lot to prove, right? Yes, it played Chattanooga last week. Okay, great. Big deal, right? This is the Tennessee secondary that needs to show improvement from last year, and we'll see if it can do that in this game because it's time for the Volunteer defense to come up big. This is a North Carolina State offense that looked really good this past week despite their defensive struggles. Can the Tennessee defense rise to the occasion? Can it slow down Grayson McCall in the passing attack? Can it slow Jordan Waters down? Can it provide pressure into the backfield? Can it win the battle on the line of scrimmage? A lot of questions here for Tennessee because honestly, a lot of those things I might favor North Carolina State in. I mean, just the physicality up front. I think I'd favor the Wolfpack offensive line. Grayson McCall versus the Tennessee secondary. I definitely would lean towards Grayson McCall, but leading into the prediction here, it's a 7:30 game on ABC. You can also find this one on ESPN Plus. Again, it's the Dukes Mayo kickoff. I think Tennessee has the better quarterback in Nico Iamaleava. I think overall they have more weapons offensively with guys like Brew McCoy and Deontay Thornton and Squirrel White and the running back who I don't know how I'm forgetting his name, Dylan Sampson. Again, Iamaleava, I'll say his name one final time. Really, really, really good player. And with the struggles that NC State had on defense this past week, I am not really super confident in the Wolfpack being able to slow down Tennessee enough to be able to get this win. Now, if NC State does want to get this win, Grayson McCall and company still have a lot of really, really good weapons. And especially when you compare their offense to the Volunteer defense, they very well may be able to win the battle at the line of scrimmage. And one thing that NC State was able to do that Tennessee wasn't last week was control the pace of play. Now, Tennessee didn't really have to. They scored way too many points. But North Carolina State held the ball for more than 10 minutes than what Western Carolina had possession last week. That is going to be the key factor against Tennessee. Can you keep Nico Iamaleava and this explosive Tennessee offense off the field? I think North Carolina State is going to win the time of possession battle. I do think North Carolina State is going to have their good moments offensively, and this Tennessee secondary is going to be challenged. But the Tennessee defense is talented enough to come up with 1, 2, maybe even the 3 stops that it's going to need. This is an offense that is way too talented, at least from what I've seen from this North Carolina State defense, to be able to handle. And I think Nico Iamaleava and the Tennessee Volunteers walk out of Charlotte with a big win. 37-28 is my final score prediction. I think this one is going to see its fair amount of offense, and the defenses, I think both of which might struggle. So when it comes down to it, who's the better quarterback? Which offense do I trust to be more explosive? And at the end of the day, I think that's the Tennessee Volunteers. Again, 37-28 is my final score prediction, and I want to know everything you guys think about this game in the comment section down below. Hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I will see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.